go through embedded and embeddable annotation. This one. To understand this relationship of embedded and embeddable, let's go through one example. Suppose we have two classes. One is customer class and another one is address class. So we are going to create the table of customer class. So for customer there is going to be a name table. We are going to write that name of the table right here on top of customer class name. We are going to create corresponding columns for these properties: CID, name, phone. But what we want here is to include some of the properties from the address class. Look, for customer we are going to create table, but for address we are not going to create table. What I said, that we are going to have table for customer class, but we are not going to make table for address class. What we want, that inside customer table that is going to create it for this customer class, we want some properties of address class. Like for customer table that is going to get created for customer class, there is going to be column CID, name, phone. But what we want, that there should be more columns that are available inside the class address, not the address table. We are not going to create the table of the address. We are only going to create the table for the customer. So what we want, when we are going to create table for customer, we will get some of these fields. Like we want to mention city and pin code of address class when we are creating table for customer. What we want? We want that when we are creating customer table, there should be column CID, should be column CNAME, and there should be column phone. And we also want city column and pin code column inside this customer table. But this city and pin code field are not available in our customer class. So for that, we want that these two fields, city and pin code, will come from the class address. From the class address, city will come and pin code will come. But again, we are not going to create table for address. Table should be only one for customer, inside which CID, name and phone, and city and pin code column is going to be available. So when we are not going to create table of the address and only we are going to create a table for customer, and we want some fields that are inside some other class like address, then in this case, how we are going to do that? How we are going to do that? Just remember, we are going to create table for customer, not for address, but we want some field from address class to be get inserted or get created with the columns of customer table. So you got the use case. We want some fields from different class inside our persistence class. Why it is persistence class? Because ID is going to be, CID is going to be primary key. There is one field which is uniquely identifiable. So in this persistence class, we want some field that is not available here. We want to include these fields from different normal class like CIT and code. Let's do the code to understand this concept of embeddable and embedded, like where we are going to use embeddable annotation and embedded annotation. So we have to use embeddable annotation on top of class, which class properties, city and pin code we want to add in the corresponding persistence class. We have to add embeddable annotation right here of this class. So we are writing at the rate of embeddable. So we have to write embeddable annotation on top of address class, because this class properties city and pin code we want to add in the persistence class. And here in persistence class, which is customer, what we have to do? We have to write embedded annotation right here. Like, let me show you. Right here, you have to first write the address field. So it is ADDRESS, reference for address, and on top of this you have to write at the rate embedded. So you have to write embeddable annotation on top of class which property you want to include in other persistence class. So here is the embeddable, and you have to use embedded right here on top of field of address class, address type field. Let's do the code to understand this embeddable and embedded concept further. In our Eclipse IDE, let's make a project embedded and embeddable. So inside embedded and embeddable, we have one customer class, and for customer class, let's make it simple. We don't want constant right here. Let's remove the constants and also remove the city and account number from here. Let's also remove the version. So again, now what we have to do, we have to create one class called accounts, not accounts. We have to create a class address. Let's create a class address, but this class is not going to be a persistence class. We are not going to make table for this address. Suppose we have address, and in this we have private city, string city, we have our state, we have country, we have pin code, and this class also have constructors. That's the normal thing that any class can have. Public address, one default constructor. Let's give one parameterized constructor. If you want, you can also write getter and setter methods. Let's write getter and setter methods. So for this class, we are not going to make table in our database. So we are not writing entity and table name, and we are not making these columns. What we want this city field and this pin code field to be get included in our customer table, because for customer we are going to create table. So we want only that pin code and city will get included in this table that we are making customer. And for pin code and city also we are going to get columns in our corresponding table that will get generated for customer. So for that, what you have to do, you have to mention this address field first, private, suppose DDR, and before writing embedded annotation right on top of this address, we have to write embeddable, because this class is what? Embeddable. The properties of this class is going in the customer table, in the customer class also. So what we are doing, we are writing it embeddable. This class is embeddable, address class is embeddable. And in here, on top of this field address that we mentioned, we have to write embedded. And other thing that you have to write here is you have to write attribute overrides annotation, because you are taking attributes. These are the fields, or you can say these are the attributes that we want inside our customer table. So for that, what you are going to write further is inside these brackets you have to write attribute override, and in this you have to write name of the field that you want to include from the address class. So you want to include city, take care of spellings, you want to include city, so you are going to write city, then comma, column, at column name. For city you want to create, suppose city C column in the table customer. So what we are doing in this line of code, we are writing attribute overrides annotation, then inside that annotation we are writing attribute override annotation which have these values. So what attribute override annotation have? It is taking the attribute, the field name that we want to include from the address class. So it is city, we want to include city. We have provided the name city. So this is going to get included from here inside customer table. And for this city, the corresponding column which is going to get generated for this city field that is coming from address, we want column name for this city is city C that we provided right in here. But this is only for one field, which is city. We want to import, you can say import or include multiple fields from the address class, which is city as well as pin code. So for that, we have to use curly braces, and inside this curly braces, we have to write another query for importing, another annotation, you can say, for importing another field from the address. So put comma. Now we want to include pin code from the address. So right here pin code. Now pin code is going to get added, but for pin code, what is going to be the column name? So for pin code, let's pin code C. So these are the two field names or properties that we want to include in our customer table, but these field names are not available in class customer. These fields are available inside address, so we are including these through this attribute override annotation. What we did, we used attribute overrides. Here is the S. Inside that we are using attribute override, and then we are giving the name of the attribute that we want to include in this customer table, which is city. So city comes from here, and for this city, the column name is going to be city C. Likewise, for pin code, column name is going to be pin code C. If we want, we can also include these two fields, but let these two fields left right now. For right now, you can do that. So remember where we are writing the annotations on top of address type field. Here is the embedded, and there is the attribute overrides. And where is the embeddable? Embeddable is here on top of address class, because fields of this address class are going to be embedded. So this is embeddable and this is embedded. Now let's insert the values. So at create code, we are inserting first, let's say, so we have address type of field right here, but we don't have address inside our constructor, or we don't even have setter and methods. So let's create a constructor that can take address. It is taking address, and if we are not going to pass the address at the time of creating from here within the constructor, then we can use setters method to set the address. So for that also, let's get the setter method for address, and let's do that in our client code, which is in which we are performing create operation. Let's create the address first. In address, we are providing city, suppose Delhi. State is also Delhi. Country is India, and pin code is maybe something like this, but pin code is null I think. Yes, it is taking null. We created our address. We have to create customer. And in customer, we are providing address inside the constructor. So we are going to with the constructor that is taking the address. So for, I think this is the name. Yes, this is the name, phone and email. So for no name, it is Raj, and phone is suppose something like this, and email is raj@gmail.com. Then we are going to use save method of session, and we are saving customer, and these things are going to be inside study database. Let's delete everything from study database first. Let's drop the database, drop the study database, create the study database. We are using study database, and right now there is nothing inside the study database. Let's run this code. Java application, proceed, and everything is fine. Let's see. And in here you can see CID is from customer class. CID is from customer class. City is from address class. City is from address class. City and pin code is coming from address class. So CID is from customer class. City comes from the address class. Country and pin code are also coming for address class. We have email from customer class. We have my name from customer class, and we have phone from customer class. But why the country and state is also here? We only included city and pin code. You can see we are only including city and pin code. But what is happening? We are getting country and state also. This is happening because in here constructor we have provided the country and state. So let's say we are not going to provide country and state this time. For that there have to be constructor without state and country. So suppose we are using the constructor that is not taking country and state, it is only taking city and pin code. So city is NYC and pin code is 99. So pin code is also a string. What if we are going to insert this value? Let's see. So in country and state it is going to be null, because in the first query, in the first time when we use the address with every properties, our corresponding column got generated. That's why right now it is null. So what you can do, you can drop table again and use table. Let's see this time. There will be only and pin code column is going to get generated from the address side. So this is not happening. Everything is getting generated. So what you got from that? When we are using embeddable and embedded, then what is happening? Every properties of this class address is going to get embedded in the table of customer, but through this line of code attribute overrides, what you can do, you can change the column name. Suppose for city is coming from the address. For city, we are creating column city C. So for city, column got created city C. For pin code field, the cross country and state, for country and state, for these two fields, column got generated with the name of the fields. For country, it is country. For state field, the corresponding column is state. So this is how, by using embeddable annotation and embedded annotation, you can include fields from different class, in which the another class, which is embeddable class, which is address, is not going to have its own table. So for address, we are not creating table, but we are taking the properties of address inside our customer table. So this is all about embeddable and embedded annotations. So we have covered also all these miscellaneous concepts inside Hibernate. With this, our Hibernate is now complete. We have covered every topic inside the Hibernate. There are going to be some more videos after this. You can follow up also with those videos. There are some other topics, but overall, these are the things that are inside Hibernate. We have covered everything. These all concepts, association mapping concepts, inheritance mapping concepts, and collection mapping and simple mapping. Everything we have gone through one by one. You have to watch every video in this playlist of Hibernate to understand every concept, the problem statements, how we solved this problem statement using Hibernate. So here is the end of this Hibernate tutorial, but there are going to be some more videos on some more miscellaneous concepts. You can follow up with those videos.